Am horrified of my daughter going on a date. Yeah, I 40M get it. All dads freak out when their precious daughter, 16F, decides to start exploring the world of romance. It's because we know that boys are idiots. I know I was when I was 15. That's how old this Josh kid is. Yeah, I've checked his social media. His FB is mostly family. He's got 2 older sisters, and his mom looks to be about the same age as Hannah and I. I don't see any dad pics, but that could just mean he's not in the picture. Josh is apparently an athlete. His IG is full of baseball and basketball shots. Didn't find anything on TikTok, but I'm not the best with that app. There were a couple of YouTube videos of him playing video games, shooting stuff. That didn't impress me. I'm guessing it's the baseball that caught Ava's attention. I'm a huge fan of our local ball club, 162 games a year, and I might miss 20, but I always catch the highlights. I go to the ballpark about 15 to 20 times a year. Unless Ava has other commitments, she's almost always there with me. When we're home, she's got her iPad with the game day app running. When we're at the park, she's the one filling in the scorecard. She knows everything about every player on the field. It makes me so proud when she starts talking about advanced stats, hit probability, K rates, batter/pitcher tendencies like she's discussing the weather. She's so casual about it, and it usually catches the attention of people around us. I've been watching baseball for 30 years, but she makes me look like a casual fan. I love it. We were watching a game when she told me about the date. I was sitting back on the sofa, popping foam by my side. She always sits up straight, both feet on the ground, back upright, iPad in her lap. Between innings, she turned her head, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "Mom told me to tell you I have a date on Friday." I heard a giggle from the dining room. I played it cool though. I smiled, sat up a little straighter, and asked, "What's his name? Where does he live? And what does he want to do with his life?" She turned back to the TV and said, "Game's back on." I told her I needed to pee, then stepped around the corner to talk to Hannah. As soon as I saw her, I mouthed, "WTH?" She looked excited, which only made me frown more. "Why are you so happy about this?" I asked. She just smiled. "Phoenix?" I said, "How'd you find out?" "Lily told me when they got home from school," she said. Lily has been Ava's best friend since they were babies. She's also her cousin, and we spent a lot of time with Sally and Jim, her parents. Sally's Hannah's sister, and the girls were born 3 months apart. They've grown up together. I just said, "I need to get back to Ava before the inning's over. I'll text you questions." My wife grinned and gave me a hug as I headed back. I sat down beside Ava, and she immediately updated me. Fly out and a hit by pitch. Our pitcher always has trouble coming inside with left-handed batters. 18.7% success rate. I smiled, thanks for the update. I grabbed my phone and texted Hannah. Me. What's his name? Where does he live? And what does he want to do with his life? Her. His name is Josh. He lives in Parkside, and I'm not answering the last question. How would I even know that? Me. Because we don't let our daughter date someone we don't know. That's why. Her. It's going to be fine, honey. Sally, Jim, and Lily are coming over after the game for snacks. We can ask Lily for more info. Me, okay. We'll talk more once we get the details. That's when I started diving into Josh's social media. During commercial breaks, I managed to get a little more info from Ava. She confirmed his name is Josh. She met him in the school cafeteria, and she's known him for 17 days. 17, and he plays on the school baseball team. That's about as much as I could get before I noticed her getting frustrated. She does this little chin quiver thing when she's about to get upset, and I've learned to back off when I see it. I'm feeling worried, no doubt about it. My daughter is beautiful, not just daddy's eyes beautiful, but stunningly beautiful. When she was 3 months old, Hannah had professional baby photos done. The photographer didn't charge us as long as we gave permission to enter the pictures into a contest. We agreed, she won, and we ended up with a $5,000 check. Ever since then, Ava has done kids and teen modeling. All the money goes into her college fund. We haven't had to worry about boys until now because Ava's always been all business at school. She and Lily get dropped off 10 minutes before class. They have side-by-side lockers, and they share homeroom. Ava goes from class to class, always sitting in the front, taking notes, never disrupting anyone. During free periods, she goes to homeroom to finish home. She excels in subjects she loves like math, physics, and biology, though she struggles with reading and writing. It's fine though, the structure works for her, and she's doing well. Outside of school, Ava loves horseback riding, swimming, and volunteering at the zoo. She doesn't meet boys there. She rides alone, sticks to her lane in the pool, and works with adults at the zoo. She's all about animals. She can name species you've never heard of. The point is, I've never had to worry about a boy catching her eye. Until now. Please don't get me wrong. She's not a hermit. She's been to birthday parties and played at the park, but I've never seen her connect with a boy before. I guess I've been living in some fantasy where I'd never have to face this. What do I need to really worry about here? What can I do to keep her safe? What questions can I ask without sounding like a crazy person? I need help not screwing this up with my daughter. I'm worried. I'll update you tonight or tomorrow once I know if this date is better or worse than I'm expecting. Update. Sally, Jim, and Lily came by after the game. Sally and my wife, Hannah, generally sit in the living room with a bottle of wine and do the sister talk thing. Lily and Ava headed up to Ava's room. Jim and I went down to the basement to play some darts and drink a couple of brews. I wasn't expecting much tea, as they say nowadays, from Jim because he's pretty indifferent to this sort of thing. Lily started dating a couple of years ago, and when it first happened, I was asking Jim all sorts of questions. His attitude was basically, it's just young teenager stuff, nothing really to worry about. All I could think about was when I was 15, in my first real relationship. We dated for 16 months, and she took my virginity. Then she cheated on me and dumped me for some loser hanging around my friend group. 6 months later, she tried to crawl back, but I wasn't interested in being a plaything for a blood-sucking vampire. The experience shattered my heart. Ava doesn't need that kind of crap in her life. The conversation with Jim didn't go anywhere. He was more interested in how I was handling the news of Ava's pending disaster. I had no desire to talk about myself, so I deflected the conversation back to Lily's first dating experiences. As we got set up for darts, Jim said, "So, I hear Ava is entering the dating pool?" With a grin. I winced but bounced back quickly, retorting, "Yeah, I guess I'm the last of us to enter the worried dad club." Then he asked, "How are you feeling?" "I know it's taken a lot of work to get here." I said, "Ava has never worked for me. I'm just concerned for her safety." "Was there anything you and Sally did to help keep Lily safe when she started dating?" He got a wise wizard look and said, "Sally knew the family, so we weren't really worried about him being a serial killer or rapist, if that's what you're worried about." I grimaced and asked, "Is that really what we have to worry about nowadays?" He laughed, which only made me angrier, and said, "Nah, man, kids need to explore these feelings. They'll do it with or without you knowing. All we can do is try to keep it on a fair playing field, you know." I didn't, but I tried to figure it out while he kicked my butt in darts. By 10:30, Sally, Jim, and Lily had left. Hannah helped Ava with her bedtime routine, and by 11 o'clock, we were finally able to sit down. Our bed has always been our meeting spot. No matter how busy life gets, we end the day sharing what's going on with the kids and each other. Whether the night ends in intimacy, affection, or just conversation, it works for us most of the time. Last night was different. Hannah hopped into bed, flashed a smile that clearly said she wanted to get frisky, and asked, "So, how'd the chat with Jim go?" I was baffled that she wasn't taking this seriously. I should have been more careful, but I messed up and said, "WTF with Jim, no? He doesn't give a shit about his daughter." Cue Morgan Freeman's voice. It was at this moment he realized he'd FD up. Hannah went from ready to get it on to furious in seconds. She hopped back out of bed with an impressively fast move, thanks to her gymnast background, and stared me down. "You're an overprotective asshole, and you don't respect what Sally, Jim, and Lily have done to help us with Ava," she shouted before storming out of the room. I know I'm a good person, but I make mistakes. It became clear I'd let my emotions run wild. I went downstairs, found Hannah crying on the sofa, and held her. I told her how hard this was for me and promised I'd try to understand the situation better. I acknowledged how much her family was helping us, and we calmed down. I do believe everything I said, but I'm still scared because I feel like our situation is different. As we went back upstairs, I peeked into Ava's room. Watching her sleep always calms me. She was on her back, arms over her chest, like she was hugging herself. The room was lit with a soft purple glow from her iHome mood light, and the sound of gentle rain was playing. She always plays sounds when she's anxious. I quietly shut the door, feeling more at peace. We didn't have much time to discuss the situation after that. We hugged and kissed this morning, so I think we've worked through my bad attitude, but I still don't know what my wife knows. It's Thursday and time is running out. I'd really appreciate some help here. I'm clearly drowning. I'll give another update once I know more, assuming I can handle the situation without losing my mind. I found myself thinking about the time my wife and I experienced every parent's worst nightmare. I do realize that there are way too many parents that have experienced much worse in this crazy world, but this was enough to scare the living daylights out of my wife and me forever. It started when Ava was 7, and we were heading to this mall, hotel, and casino complex in the capital city. We were going because I had board meetings with a national charity that I was vice president of at the time. We had our youngest, Lily, with us, and she was 1. Yeah, we named our daughters after Disney characters. Don't judge. My wife and I connected over our love of Disney movies. We both had all the movies on VHS, then DVD, and now we have Disney+. It is what it is, but it drives me nuts how much money we've spent on the same content. FML. I give myself a little laugh every once in a while when I think of the time I tried to argue that we should name our first boy Gaston. My wife is small and fiery, so I knew that would set her off. LOL. Sorry for the sidebar. I just needed to bring a little levity into a scary story. I'm sure that every family has their horror stories about traveling. This day was one of ours. I had to be at the board meeting at noon. The expected check-in time was 11, and we planned to be there by 10. It was a 4-hour drive from home to the hotel, and we planned to leave at 6. Yeah, nothing ever goes to plan. We ended up getting out of the driveway at 6:30, getting stopped for speeding at 8:30. Of course, I was trying to make up time, and hitting ridiculous city traffic at 10:45. We got to the hotel 15 minutes before the meeting started. I needed to be there. My wife has always been calm and cool in these situations, as long as no one is provoking her. She took control of my stressed-out self. I ran off, thankful that the situation didn't turn into some sort of blame game about the stressful journey. I got to the conference room on the 3rd floor of the hotel with 5 minutes to spare. A buffet lunch was set up on the side of the room, and my fellow board members gave me time to grab some food and settle in before we started. We were about 15 minutes into the meeting when my phone started to vibrate on the table. It was my wife. I embarrassingly sent it straight to voicemail. A text came immediately after. "Call me now." I excused myself from the meeting, apologizing as I walked out of the room. What followed was the scariest moment of my wife and my life. I called her back, and she answered with a panicked, "Ava has disappeared." I said, "What?" Just stunned. My wife was clearly crying and shouted, "She's gone, and I don't know where she is." All I could muster in my confused state was a weak, "I'll be right down," and I hung up. I stepped back into the meeting room and told them that Ava had disappeared downstairs, and I was heading to the lobby. Their response was incredible. Our executive director took control of the situation. There were 8 of us in this 30-floor hotel. They assigned 3 floors to each board member, with my job being to get to the lobby and find out what was happening from my wife. They set up a chat group, and everyone left knowing that they would first search the hallways of their assigned floors. But if nothing was discovered, they would start going door to door. Privacy and hotel policy be damned. This was serious. I flew down the stairs to the lobby, no time for the elevator. When I arrived, my wife was standing there, Lily on her hip and holding an iPad in her other hand, talking to a gentleman in a red blazer. Her cheeks were red and puffy. I hugged her, took Lily, and listened. She was explaining the situation to the head of security. After I'd left, the doorman put our luggage on a cart, and the valet took our SUV away. My wife and the kids went to the lobby to check in, but there was a line. Ava didn't want to wait in line, so she asked if she could sit on a bench and play a game on her iPad. My wife found a place for her to sit, gave her the iPad, and got in line. She said she kept looking over every minute or so, and Ava was alone, focused on the iPad. It was during the check-in that she lost sight of her. My wife had to find her wallet and ID while holding Lily, and it took a bit of time. By the time she was done, Ava was gone, and only the iPad was left on the bench. My wife panicked immediately, scanning the lobby and thinking she might have seen Ava get into an elevator, but she wasn't sure. She shouted, "Ava, That got the attention of the hotel staff, and security stepped in. They shut down the elevators and alerted all exit doors with Ava's photo. I arrived just as the head of security started talking to my wife. We weren't close to home. We were in a big city, at a resort filled with all sorts of people, and our little girl had just vanished. Security took my phone number and said they'd call as soon as they had the video footage. My wife, Lily, and I went to the second floor, where there was access to the pool/spa, casino, and mall. I started getting texts from my board members about clear floors. My wife checked the pool because Ava loves swimming, and I, with Lily, took them all. At this point, it had been 45 minutes since she disappeared. I looked down the long tunnel of the mall, feeling despair. So many people, so much space. Where was my girl? I started walking, scanning the crowd, yelling Ava every so often. Halfway through, hotel security called with updates. I texted my wife to meet me at the elevator with the head of security. The video showed Ava standing near where I had stopped and a man in a leather jacket approaching her. They exchanged a few words, then went down the escalator. Mall security was informed, and they were checking footage. My wife, Lily, and I rushed to the escalator, splitting up to search the first floor, still shouting Ava's name. 2 hours after she disappeared, just as I was nearing the end of my rope, I saw her. Ava, holding an ice cream cone in her right hand and the hand of a man who looked like Santa Claus in her left. Warren, a fellow board member's husband, had spotted Ava in a bookstore. He recognized her from photos on our group's Facebook page, texted a picture of her to confirm with his wife, and then brought her back. He bought her ice cream on the way back to the hotel. It turned out that Ava had met the man with the leather jacket, but when he tried to take her away, she screamed, bit him, and scratched at his face until he left. Then she wandered into the bookstore, distracted by the books. We were beyond lucky. Ava didn't understand why we were so afraid, no matter how much we tried to explain it. But we knew how blessed we were, and I never want to feel those emotions again. I can't lie, and I feel like I need to bring some fun to what I've been writing to everyone here. My wife, Hannah, is a fantastic woman who just finished sharing an incredible, mind-bending, loving 20 minutes with me. She's sitting beside me, and we're recovering. I love my life and my wife right now, and always, babe. She can give me the side eye all she wants. Reddit pervs can make up anything they want about what we did in the past 20 minutes. Go for it. I'll guarantee you can't come close to what I felt. My wife rocks. I needed this. I've been so negative about my daughter that I forgot about the path we started for her and how important these next few days are. Please don't misunderstand me here. This is the result of my wife and I realizing that we're doing a pretty good job. Honestly, she was aware of this a few days before me, but please give me a bit of credit. I've talked about Ava, my personal insecurities, laid out my living of a parental nightmare. Can't believe I did that, but it seriously helped, and my misguided thoughts about not only our support network, but also Ava's choice of a suitor. In short, yeah, I've realized what an ass I've been. It is what it is, and I'll guarantee you're not perfect either. I spent today, Thursday, thinking about our path to get to where we are. I reflected on the bad, see my last story. I'm so sorry that it triggered auto-mod attention. But honestly, I spent most of the day in awe of my daughter's accomplishments. Ava was a surprise for Hannah and me. We were newlyweds with plans to live life. Then have our 2.5, 3 really, but yeah, welcome to the world of ridiculous stats, kids, and rock this world. We weren't ready, but we're accepting of the early result. Please, people, don't rely on the pull-out method unless you're truly ready for an unexpected surprise. I was a new professional still learning with my firm, and my wife had started her career making marketing write-ups for new websites. She speaks 3 languages and is just plain awesome at making anything exciting. I was so excited to be a dad. I've mentioned that I live in the future, and I was ready and excited to be the dude for my child. As any new parent knows, yeah, the birth experience is an event. Our daughter was born after 14 hours of labor. My wife did slap me during the ordeal for having bad breath, but I'll own that. Ava was flawless from the moment she was born. There isn't an opinion in this world that will convince me otherwise. She has every right to live her best life, as anyone else. She started showing delays in development early. She didn't walk until she was 24 months. She didn't start talking until she was 3 years old. Hannah and I worked very hard to help her through each milestone. Let's be clear, though, Ava has always been the boss of what she did or did not want to do. From the time she was 6 months old, she'd crawl to and up the stairs when she heard a bath running. It was incredible to watch her determination, and it scared a couple of young, new parents tremendously, but she showed us her strength and focus. It was Hannah who first started to notice Ava's delays. When she first started communicating her worries, I came to my first realization that parenting isn't some pre-written Disney script like our lives were. If you haven't figured it out by now, I'll just state it openly. Hannah and I have lived a privileged life. We met at one of the most respected universities in our country. She was a gymnast, I was in track and field. We had scholarships, but that really didn't matter. Her family owned pharmacies. My family owned a large farming/ranching operation. They'd both sold their businesses at about the time we got married. The plan was pretty simple. I'd get my investment credentials, manage both of our family's money while growing a reputation to become the next Warren Buffett. If I didn't get that successful, it was fine. I just needed to take my magna cum laude degree and ensure that I made a place for myself in the real world. Hannah went into marketing. She does the marketing write-ups for many prominent companies online. Many of her initial clientele came from her family, but it was her linguistic background that set her apart. She gained that background because her parents traveled a lot, and she had a natural tendency to pick up new languages. It was a tale as old as time in our world when we got married and announced that we were having our first child. I have always gone back to my thoughts before becoming aware of Ava's challenges. As part of her baptism, I was asked to write my dream for her. I started with what I thought was a standard promise of being a kind, loving protector and provider for her. I went on to say that it was my desire that she grew to dream big, fantastic dreams and have the courage and strength to pursue them. A bit naive, sure, but I've found that throughout our journey, this has been my true guide for her. It didn't take me long to realize that my dream for her shouldn't or couldn't change. She's my daughter, and it's up to her to create her dreams and pursue them. It was her first birthday party when Hannah first noticed it. We had a big room booked, all sorts of balloons, games, candy, and catering. Any new parents that say that they don't look at other kids and compare are liars. It's human nature. You compare your kid to others and assess how awesome your kid is. Ava didn't want to hang with the other. In every picture we had, the kids were playing, and Ava had her back to them, sitting in a corner, reading books or making puzzles. School wasn't easy for her. She would get overwhelmed with noise or act different and be judged, even bullied by her peers. Her responses were always loud, abrupt, and even violent. School systems aren't built for abnormal. Teachers are overwhelmed and unprepared for disruptions. Society as a whole would rather separate perceived problems than figure out solutions. NIMBY, not in my backyard, is a truth. If you want to waste everyone's time arguing about it, then you're just a liar, extremely sheltered, or an idiot. We had so many experts tell us what Ava could and could not do. So many people with these general, pre-boxed solutions to our daughter's life. Even both of our parents had ideas and shared thoughts of institutions that would help our daughter while keeping her separate from our family and their embarrassment. That was truly the biggest betrayal we had to deal with. People suggesting that our life would be improved by separating our own daughter from us, keeping our child hidden from our world. I always get this shiver in my diaphragm when I think of it. Our life is different because of Ava. The poem Welcome to Holland by Emily Pearl Kingsley helped us truly understand and give up on our Disney dreams. I became empathetic. I no longer walked past people in need, ignoring them, showing disdain over my perceived understanding of their situation. Ava taught me that challenges can happen to everyone, and sometimes those challenges can't be overcome by just some hard work and perseverance. We were fortunate to have our love for each other and the resources to adapt and change. We connected with people who had already experienced the challenges of helping guide their children. We listened and learned from their experiences, both failures and successes. We got help from Hannah's sister and family. We did whatever we could to help our family succeed and achieve. But at the end of the day, it's Ava and her alone that determined her own path. It was Ava who insisted that she go to regular school. In the early years, she was often sent home for behaviors. Hannah has always had a flexible schedule, and she would be there to pick her up when called. Teachers and administrators aren't tolerant of disruptions, and not all bullying is easily identifiable. It was Ava who insisted on continuing to try and who resisted segregation. Some years were better than others. Some teachers were more open to her needs, and some administrators were more capable of organizing accommodations. Ava learned to control her violent responses to her triggers. Loud or consistent noises and ignorance of her personal boundaries were her early struggles. We helped her learn that punching, screaming, and biting were not acceptable. She learned to just pinch instead. It reduced disruptions, wasn't as violent, and she was still able to express her discomfort. Lily helped Ava set clear boundaries with classmates, along with a lot of discussions between administrators and Hannah and me. Teachers began giving Ava permission to just leave a class if she felt her environment was becoming uncomfortable. It was a give and take that allowed her to avoid isolation while finding a way to function in society. The culmination of all this is that a real-life, honest-to-goodness boy, whom she expressed an interest in and told her friend Lily, who then set them up to meet, was asking her on a date. It's a fabulous, common thing that I personally had started to dismiss. Yep, I suck. I dig what Jim was talking about. It is what Hannah and I have been doing throughout Ava's life. I'm thrilled to say that the date is going to happen tomorrow, but we did need to do some work to set up the playing field. We, being Hannah, Sally, and I, sat down at the table with Ava last night. I should have realized that she was acting a bit off. It took some effort to get her to sit down with us and talk. Sally was a big help. She could recognize that Ava was off, not from embarrassment, but from fear. I'm not a complete moron, but it did take some time to get that Ava wasn't embarrassed or scared about her physical appearance. Ava was scared of her mental challenges. She did start the conversation last night by stating she didn't want to go out on her date. I'll always be proud of her for expressing herself when she's struggling. She doesn't have a problem with freezing during a time when she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't hide her triggers from anyone. Sally did a fantastic job leading the conversation. She is truly one of Ava's best advocates. My daughter just left the house for her very first date, and I'm settling in to catch a baseball game, lost in thought about my front door. It's a strange yet wonderful thing to consider, isn't it? That door is an entry point I control completely. Is this young man worthy of stepping into my home? We interact with so many people in public, but we can't control those encounters. We can choose to be open or closed, but ultimately, we have no say in who enters our space. But that door? I hold all the power there, and I can't help but think how intimidating that must be for someone stepping up to it. I've walked through plenty of doors in my life, but I don't think I've ever considered it like this. As a father, I believe it's essential to meet my daughter's date. Sure, every dad loves the idea of having to talk with a gun and a shovel, but most of us know that approach can be damaging. I'm navigating these waters for the first time. All I ask is that her suitor acknowledges he's getting to know my girl. Is that too old-fashioned? I've heard so many stories from dads who've never even met their daughter's love interest. I hope I'm not there yet, but I genuinely want to assess the character of the young man my daughter is interested in. I know the traps, judgment, control, insecurity that can hurt not only my relationship with her, but also my mental health. Just having that awareness makes this introduction feel more reasonable, doesn't it? I know, I'm living in my own Disney fantasy. I've had countless conversations with other dads about this. I used to shrug it off, not believing I'd have to deal with it myself. I was relieved when my brother-in-law, Jim, shared his experience. Not because it was comforting, but because I genuinely believe my daughter wouldn't pursue someone without the courage to meet me. So many fathers don't know their daughter's partners, and I hear them lamenting about having no clue or he's never been to the house while I was there. I get it. Some dads don't realize how their words, actions, or even availability impact their relationship with their child. I've heard tales of young men showing up and not even knocking. I believe a young man brave enough to come to the door demonstrates his character. It's not easy, and I empathize with the anxiety and fear, but the willingness to confront those feelings for my daughter speaks volumes, doesn't it? Yeah, back to that Disney dream. I won't apologize for it. This is my family. This is my desire. I met Ben at my door. My daughter, Ava, 10F, and I were bracing ourselves for the typical drive-up, text, and drive-off situation. So, we were pleasantly surprised when there was an actual knock. The anticipation filled our home. Laughter, giggles, even squeals echoed around us. I love it when our house buzzes with life. We've often avoided that noise out of uncertainty, preferring calm over excitement. But it felt fantastic. Ava was thrilled, and we had a blast discussing how we would greet Ben. She wanted me to dress like a Dementor from Harry Potter, but I resisted that urge, opting instead for a more formal, intimidating look. Ava opened the door while I stayed hidden. She greeted Ben with, "Hello, Ben. We've been waiting for you," in a serious tone, extending her hand like a boss. I couldn't help but feel proud. We had speculated about what he would look like, imagining a California surfer type, but we were pleasantly surprised. He wore cream boots, khakis, and a light blue dress shirt. He looked sharp, for lack of a better word. He was tall and had an athletic build. I stepped out as he shook Ava's hand, saying, "Let me save you, Ben. Welcome to our home," as I extended my hand for a shake. He had a firm grip, neither aggressive nor timid. He nodded, avoiding eye contact, and asked, "Hello, sir. Is Ava here?" In that moment, I recognized how respectful this young man was. I decided we wouldn't play any games with him. He was exactly who I had hoped he would be. I looked down at Ava and said, "Why don't you let your sister know that Ben is here?" She glanced up, slightly disappointed, but understood, responding, "We'll be right back." With a skip in her step, she dashed off while I stood before Ben. I opened my stance, gesturing with my arm, and said, "Welcome, Ben. Let's sit on the sofa and wait for Ava. She'll be down shortly." Knowing he was a baseball player, I pointed out some cool memorabilia in the entryway. He immediately noticed the first jersey and asked about it. We connected as we chatted, completely engrossed in conversation when Ava finally came down the stairs. Her hair was simple yet elegant, a high ponytail with a few strands framing her face. She wore jeans and a fitted sweater. I had to stop myself from commenting, realizing my wife and sister had navigated this delicate balance perfectly, leaving me with no choice but to simply say, "Wow." Ben was momentarily stunned, and I nearly lifted his jaw back up. I'm pretty sure he wiped drool off his chin as he stammered a shy, "Hey, Ava." I stepped aside, aware I was just a supporting player in this story. Ava hugged me as she approached. For most people, a hug is a simple gesture, but for us, it's profound. Ava has always been sensitive to physical touch. It's one of her triggers. My wife and I are affectionate, but we've learned that we can't just hug Ava whenever we want. We need her permission. I can count on two hands how many times she's initiated a hug, and this moment was one of those rare instances. I was taken aback, feeling warmth and love from my daughter like never before. She smiled at me, then turned to Ben, saying, "You ready to go?" Sorry for being a bit late, as she breezed past both of us and out the door, leaving us speechless. At first, I felt a pang of disappointment about not chaperoning them, but their plan was solid, and my concerns ended there. I settled back to enjoy the ball game, Ava by my side, waiting for my daughter to return with a smile. I truly hope it isn't disappointment, but we'll tackle that if it comes. My wife darted around the house like a squirrel, and I paused her a couple of times for a quick hug. We were both overflowing with emotions, and all I could feel was pure happiness. We've done our job. Now it's up to her and him, but I trust her choice. Thank you all for your support.